depending on how conspiratorial you want to get, there's varying degrees of they want this war to go ham. They want it to escalate as dramatically as possible.
What drives that? Is it just like a general death drive? Or, I mean, why do they want it to escalate that? Are they just thinking about the profiteering that they can make?
I think that's overly simplistic. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if going to war meant the U.S. government bought for everyone's rations a 6-pack of Conservative Dad's Ultra Right beer, I would be a little conflicted about war myself. I'm not saying I'd be for it.
Send the boys some beers, they say.
It would just make me struggle. Like, war's not so bad.
The issue of profitability is limited, in my opinion. I think what they're looking at more is times of great conflict are opportunities for great change. So it's very difficult to move the United States system that's in play. A lot of people wonder why it is big corporations keep doing the things they're doing. So I remember watching this video about a bunch of activists went to like the CEO of Shell's house protesting, and they were like, "You're global warming and you're destroying the world." He came out and sat with them and then said, what should we do? And they were like, "You should do this." And he goes, "We're doing that." And they were like, "Well, why don't you start investing in these?" And they go, "We do that too." And they were like, "Oh." And he was like, "Yeah, I don't think you realize that you have this gigantic machine with like 50,000 employees and you make a move and it's a drop of water in the ocean. So if you want to change the government, how do you do it? Take a look at the Constitution, for instance. Can't get rid of it. It's pesky if you're an authoritarian. Civil war gets rid of it. You stage a civil war, you can overhaul the government overnight and completely change the fabric of the nation. Look at the American Civil War. It was an overtly federalist system with a weak federal government. And then after the Civil War, it was a single federal entity that the states were at the behest of. Before the Civil War, the federal government served the states. After the Civil War, the states served the federal government. If there is a drive for international conflict, it is likely if you get an international conflict on the scale of, World War III, you will get Joe Biden or whoever is in the office of the presidency suspend habeas corpus. Maybe you get a presidential directive 51 type scenario where they create a new single branch continuity of government system where they claim it is an offshoot of the American system, but in a time of great emergency, and then they can just change everything, finger snap, and no one resists. Why? Because there's a war's going on. That's the opportunity. Money is after the fact. They print money. They can do whatever they want with it. But if you want real global dominance, if you want to expand the liberal economic order and create a new world order that would give more control to the hegemonic system, you need a massive conflict to break the binds of the existing system and allow you to implement mass change on a grand scale that no one resists.
I think that is the goal of the anti-America coalition, because the current hegemon, the current status quo is American dominance. But the goal of the anti-American coalition, the CCP in China, the Ayatollah in Iran, Putin in Russia, among a couple of others, North Korea, a couple of others, Cuba too, Venezuela, whatever. That's what that coalition seeks. So, and really, they have nothing in common with each other except for their anti-Americanism and being anti-American world dominance. So, we should understand who views us as enemies and views, our great liberal order as enemies, in my opinion.
But it's a really short-sighted power play, though, because they're playing with like a Dr. Strangelove scenario. I mean, do they have no fear of nuclear collapse?
I think nuclear collapse still works for this premise.
So we're going to survive it.
Well, yeah, of course. Like, the humans aren't going anywhere. And that's why I say people are like, "Oh, it's so black-pilled." I'm like, what does that mean, black-pilled, right now in this context? Like, if the United States government were to collapse, humanity survives. The fall of empire doesn't mean humanity ceases to exist. And I know that people listening to this are resourceful, smart people who are going to be able to figure it out. So, like, what's the worst-case scenario? The expansive interstate trade system breaks and we become more self-reliant. The American economy falters. You're less likely to own a laptop and you're more likely to have to farm chickens or something. The worst case scenario is not that bad. If we are to win, Donald Trump gets elected, and then what we hope for happens, securing our border, bringing back jobs, then you get prosperity and great stuff. But your worst case scenario is it'll suck. You'll be all right. I suppose, actually, the worst case scenario is they win, they get gulags, and then you end up in a camp. So that would suck.